So this family's last name is the Johnsons. You can see you've got a husband and wife, you've got 2 kids, and they're standing in front of the house. And what's interesting is that what you do each and every day, and what I do each and every day, is designed for the benefit of people like the Johnsons. But the reality is that most of us forget that you have a mom who, for example, every time she turns on the faucet in the kitchen, she expects the water to come out of the faucet in a reasonable, organized fashion so that she has some control over filling her glasses or washing her dishes or whatever it is that she wants to do. And the reason a home inspector needs to be good is not so the home inspector can find something wrong with the home to justify how smart he or she is or to justify their existence in the world. The reality is the reason we need good home inspectors is because Mrs. Johnson wants her faucet to work the way a faucet is supposed to work. And the reality is that what's happening in our world, I believe honestly, is that there is going to be a ton of focus on eliminating friction from everything. So what these big iBuyers are trying to do is they're trying to even eliminate friction from the process of fixing up a home. And I don't know about you guys, somebody in this room has probably done some fix and flips and some rehabs and some things over the years. And I can't imagine anything that is filled with more friction than that process. Every time you have to take something off or open something up, you find something that you didn't expect to be there in the first place, right? And so there's tons of friction, but it's all about creating friction. But the reality is, it's just about the Johnsons. It's just about their experience of living in a home and getting some reasonable appreciation and being able to rest assured in the evening. It's about what is good for the American consumer, what is good for the American homeowner. And we're trying real hard in our business to make sure that we're staying focused on that. Now, I keep showing you this every year only because I want you to see how far off I was. So this is, I believe, the 11th year. I think I started in 2008, so this is my 11th year. And this top line right here on the bottom was where I told you guys back then that unit sales would be over the years. I figured if I keep doing this long enough, eventually it'll catch up. It got a little bit worse last year, so notice I had figured that unit sales would grow at a pace of about 3%. So that's what that line represents right there. But in reality, unit sales are growing at an even slower rate, which means unit sales, number one, are behind my projection, but number two, they are behind what would be normal growth that would result from household formation. So we need to think about that. Average sales price, I had projected by this time we'd be at $321,870, and last year we were at $309,057. So just showing that to you to make sure you guys keep me honest. Let's talk a little bit about the number of closings. It's interesting to be able to see these are single-family detached. Now the detached, that's not the condos and the townhomes. These are units that are not attached to another one in any way, shape, or form. And you can see that as we got into this mess in 2006, 68,000 closings, went all the way down to 41,740, kind of bounced around. Now we're back up at 73,037. But we had a larger increase in unit sales from 2016 to 17 than we did 2017 to 18. Sales are up 1.62%. So I think that, I don't know that that means total sales are going to slow down over time, but there's also a certain segment of the market that didn't get counted by the market last year. There's a certain segment of the market that was where the homes were purchased by iBuyers, and they haven't been resold yet. This is all Metro Atlanta. So this is probably the best indication of all sales for Metro Atlanta that you can get anywhere, because it's very difficult to separate that data. So it's really 22 counties, but for the majority of it, it's 12 counties, and you'll see me give the actual numbers per county in just a few minutes. So average sales price, single family detached, went from $290,488 to $309,857. Notice how prices are continuing to appreciate, and notice they were appreciating less, and now the graph is turning up just slightly. So the sales prices went up faster last year than they did the year before, which was very surprising to me. Now, The reality is, at the top of the market, they're not appreciating as fast. Middle to the top, middle to the bottom, they're appreciating much faster. And it seems like, well, that wouldn't be possible, but when you look at the division of units, there are so many more transactions in this market that are 250,000 and under or 500,000 and under than that are above that, like 80% to 20%. It's amazing the difference. So when you look at the price appreciation at the lower end of the market, it magnifies over the entire market. I know it doesn't seem like it, but when you have 8 or 10 $200,000 transactions that each appreciate $7,000 a piece, it cures a lot of damage when you have a $500,000 that didn't appreciate at all year over year. And I'm not saying the higher price homes not appreciating, they are appreciating, but it is very, very condition specific. If they're perfect, somebody will lose their mind to buy that house. If the last time they were updated was 1987, then people will reject that house sort of in a very significant way, and they will penalize the value of that home. And so you get a good number of people who want to sell property today for 2019 prices when it is in perfect 1992 condition. And it just does not fly. And you guys have probably seen that when you've done some inspections throughout Atlanta.
Do you find the tax cut to the $500,000 limit affecting things in that price range?
I don't think so. We'll talk a little bit about my thoughts on some of the tax law changes, and I think we have to wait for most people to file their tax returns, and a lot of people who earn the majority of the money in the country, they haven't filed their tax returns yet. In fact, they won't get finished until probably October in most cases, because they've got all kind of business entities and things like that. But there's no doubt that some of the limitations on especially state and local taxes, things like that, it has to have some effect. But it's hard to see. It's hard to tell. Is somebody waiting just for this reason, or are they just waiting because it makes sense to wait? Interestingly enough, average sales price of detached units up 75% since 2011, up 37% since 2007. The reason we compare it back to 2007 is that was the prior all-time high. So in most areas, the all-time high was either 2005 or 2006. In Atlanta, our all-time high price was in 2007. So that's why we go back and measure everything against 2007. So the average home in Metro Atlanta is worth 37.3% more today than it was at its prior all-time high, which is interesting. Single-family attached closings up 0.72%. I think you're going to see more softness in our single-family attached market than you will in the detached market. Forgive me, and it's because inventory is growing very, very quickly in that market. But you'll notice unit sales, and look at that graph starting to curve flat. So it's interesting to watch to see what happens. So it could be that there are some better deals in the condos and the townhomes this year than there were over the last prior years. And by the way, I don't know, do you guys have access to the presentation? Will, did you upload it? So anyway, I sent it to Will, so it should be, if you have access to it online, it should be there. I only sent it a couple of hours before I got here. I forgot that I was supposed to send it in, but you guys should have access to it. You can use all these charts however you want to. But anyway, up 0.72%. Average sales price, condos and townhomes went up from 241 to 261, or increased 8.3%. So condos and townhomes appreciated faster than single-family detached homes last year, but I don't think that's going to be the case in 2019. Look at this, guys, 109% since 2011. The low was 125,000 on average, up to 261, and then up 45% since 2007. You can see our condo and townhome market before we had the crash was fairly flat anyway. Atlanta was really, never has been a huge condo and townhome market. In fact, I can remember people who bought townhomes in the 1980s, and they were worth exactly the same thing in 2003 as they paid for it in 86. I'm exaggerating, of course, but it wasn't like there was significant appreciation. I don't know why that was, but as we move forward in time, I think Atlanta's going to be more of a condo and a townhome market, just because we've got people who don't want the big homes and the big yards and the basements and all that kind of stuff, and so they're buying other units. This is just sort of a look at the total market. Total unit sales up 1.46% year over year. And you can see here at the bottom, those are the townhomes and condos, which are relatively flat. Then the red is the single-family detached, and then the blue is the total. And I'm just giving you guys some good charts since we've been producing the same thing for so many years, just trying to keep you with the same information. 2018, the average days on the market for the last 2 years has gone up. And what's interesting, and we're going to go through this in just a second, is if you listen to your local realtor or watch their Facebook ads, how quickly would you think the average home sold in Metro Atlanta?
3 or 4 days.
24 hours. They'll say 12 offers in 2 days.
Yeah.
I want to comment back and say, maybe you should have asked a reasonable price for that house, dumb. I mean, I don't mean to be ugly, but if it sells too fast, you're not letting the market have the stress that it's supposed to have anyway. So number one, not everything that gets listed sells. Flat out, and I'm going to show you a breakdown in just a second. Number two, the things that do sell, they don't sell in an average of 25 days or 30-something days. The reality is that the total days on the market, that's the initial listing period and any subsequent listing periods, we tie them together. So they don't sell the first listing period, we track them and we tie the second listing period to it. The average is a total of 67 days. These are expired listings. This is a listing that went through its whole listing period, which can be as short as 90 days, as long as sometimes a year, but I'd say on average in Metro Atlanta, with the bigger brokerages, they're probably 6 months. They're probably 180-day listing periods. And so there were 15,100 sellers who put their home on the market, and that home did not sell during that first listing period and expired. Now remember, when you're talking about an 80-something thousand unit market, 15,000 is a lot. And you'll see how these numbers start to add up to give us a good idea that the market is not all rosy for everybody. And it's something that we all need to remember. Total number of withdrawn listings. These are listings that during either the first or the second listing period were withdrawn by the seller for whatever reason. And as these numbers go up, it's a good indication that there's a little more stress in the market. So a seller puts their house on the market thinking everything's going to be hunky-dory. The market doesn't react the way they want it to react, and they decide, hey, forget it, I'm just going to take it off the market. Or whatever it might be. So this expires and withdrawals were up last year. Now, this is a chart that I told you just a minute ago, a reference that I was going to mention. It's a little hard to understand, and it's because I can't figure out how to graph it in a way that makes sense. But what we've done is we've divided up. Do you think that maybe I could make that a little smaller? You think I could make the words a little smaller, a little lower? So these are homes that are sold under $250,000. It took 36 days on average to sell those, and 82% of those listed sold in the first listing period. So even in that price range, 18% of the homes listed did not sell. This is $250,000 to $500,000. They took 49 days on average, and 68% of those sold during the first listing period. Sounds to me like a 32% failure rate. That's 1/3. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Because we have to, as real estate professionals, we have to continue to remind people as to why they need to work with a real estate professional. Because as you get to this group, you need to stay out of the 32%. If you need to sell your house, you want to stay out of the 32%. Next step up, 500,000 to 750. They took 83 days on average. 54% sold, which means 46% did not. One half of the listings, once you go up over $500,000, do not sell in the first listing period. 750,000 to $1 million took 102 days on average for ones that sold. 43% of those sold in the first listing period. Took 137 days to sell houses that were listed over $1 million, and only 1 out of 3 actually sold during that first listing period. So you'll find some of your better brokerages who want to have less competition in the market, they will actually move up in price ranges as the market gets a little tougher. Because you don't find Zillow buying a $750,000 house on average, or Open Door, or OfferPad, or anybody for that matter, because they're scared of it. Especially if you put a gate around the neighborhood, because they feel like they don't have control over much. So it kind of scares them off a little bit. That's interesting information, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to tell you right now, you are the only people in the world who have seen this information this year. Your average real estate agent, if you asked them this information, they could not give you the answer at all for any reason, period. Because they don't publish this data. This is data we have to get in and dig until we find it. We have to interrogate the numbers until they start admitting to us what's really going on. Yes?
How much is that price?
So there's 4 things that have to do with selling a home. Location, condition, price, and market. And marketing does have something to do with it, because you do need to get your house some good exposure. You need to have some good vibe behind it. You need to answer people's calls when they have interest in your property and be nice to them and stuff like that. And not all of our real estate community likes to do that. But the majority of the problem is condition and pricing. And those two things are interchangeable. Because, you know, if I came to your house today and your house was not ready to sell, and I said, well, you know, I could get you an offer today. And you're like, well, I doubt it, but trust me. If the price is low enough, I get you an offer today, I'll buy it myself. So the point is that it's always the price. And so it's trying to find the right combination. You can't fix the location. It is where it is, typically. And then you work on condition, you work on pricing, and you can work on marketing. So it's really a matter of controlling these other three. So there are a lot of homes out there today, especially as they get higher price, that they're just listed too high. You know, it's an $800,000 house. It's got to look like 2019. I mean, it has to look like today. And a house from 2019 doesn't look anything like on the inside a house from 2007. They're entirely different. So in 2007, what color were your cabinets? Brown. What color were they in 1997? White. All white. What color were the hinges and knobs? Shinier the better, right? Put your sunglasses on when you go in the kitchen. What color are kitchen cabinets today? What color are the countertops? What color are the, I mean, everything's white. Floors, okay, it's just white. Just white. What's that? Granite. Oh, granite's everywhere. What color's the granite in the new kitchens today?
White.
Might as well be marble. It's white granite, it's like marble. I know it's not marble, but things are dated. Things are dated in a lot of cases. So these are total listing inventory. Remember, the amount of inventory on the market has a lot to do with whether or not prices are moving up or down. What happened at the end of last year and what's happening right now in inventory are two different stories. So in the last couple of months, there's a ton of inventory coming on the market. So we were at 20,118 homes, condos, and townhomes on the market at the end of last year, which was our lowest level of inventory all the way back to 2002. But in the first 2 months of this year, single-family detached inventory is up 16%. Condos and townhomes, inventory is up 30%. Now, just think about it for a minute. The way you look at inventory, does anybody understand, or do you guys understand how you would use this number, inventory number, to help you understand market forces? Would it be okay if we talked about that for just a second? So whoever's got a paper and pen who would help me with something, raise your hand. Okay, you in the red. You guys are a great group. You'll ask me all kinds of questions. You won't have to be correct. I think so. So, what's your name in the red shirt?
Mike.
Mike?
Yep.
Okay, so take 20,189 and divide it by 12. Actually, never mind. Forget it. Hold on just a minute. Hold on. Let's do something. Hold on. We're going to do real numbers. Instead of goofing around and working some against numbers, we're going to do some real numbers. Hang on. So take 73,037 and divide it by 12, because that's the number of single-family detached homes that sold in Metro Atlanta.
6,086.
Is your name Mike?
No. Correction, that's 6,842.
Well, I do want to know, but Mike volunteered, Charlie, just because we're friends, don't get back to embarrass me in front of the whole group. Okay, Mike.
6,086.42.
That sounds different than what Charlie gave me.
Yeah.
So look for exact, yeah, I appreciate that. So that's the number of homes that the Metro Atlanta market is capable of absorbing, somebody buying and closing on a monthly basis as projected in the future by what happened in the last 12 months. Does that make sense? Okay, so now let's go back to our inventory chart. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but let's just take a look here. There it is right there. So we'll take a look at that inventory. Now this is total inventory. So I'm going to give you the number of detached units that make up that 20,000, and it's about 16,200. So the market is capable of absorbing how many? 6,000? 6,086 units a month, and there are 16,200 units on the market as of the end of December. So if no new inventory, are you with me? If no new inventory came on the market, how many months would it take for the market to deal with the 16,200 homes on the market?
Less than 3 months.
2.5 months.
Well, if you guys would be quiet, Michael. And I already got a guy helping me, and now you guys, come on now.
Well, it's my time, people. 2.66.
2.66 months, which means it takes 2.66 months as of the end of December for the average single-family detached home to go under contract. Does that make sense? And you can see it by what's happened in the past. So that's the significance of all of this. Now, if inventory for single-family detached homes was up 15 or 16% year-to-date, would it take longer or shorter to sell a house? It would take more time to sell a house. If the amount of time it takes to sell a house is longer compared to shorter, who do you think gets the upper hand in the transaction when it takes longer to sell versus shorter, the buyer or the seller? So what happens is you start to go from what is very clearly a seller's market today into something that is a little more buyer-oriented or a little more balanced. And the numbers that I use to determine market, if you listen to the national economists, they'll tell you that when a market has 6 months worth of inventory, it's balanced. Now, Mike, if you and I listed your house and it had been on the market 154 days, do you think your attitude about selling your home would be very balanced? And whose fault would it be, by the way?
But if you saw the condition of my house,
Oh, no. I've seen houses that are like the condition of yours, and I still get blamed when we can't sell them. It's okay. The point is that you're not, as the seller, going to feel like you're in control when it's been on the market for 154 days. Okay? So I say when you have less than 4 months worth of inventory, it's a seller's market. When you have 4 and 5 months worth of inventory, it's a balanced market. When you have more than 5 months worth of inventory, it is a buyer's market. So you can always look at the numbers, and like literally, if you can ever find the number of active listings, and see, you can do this for a subdivision, you can do it for a school district, you can do it for a whole city, you can do it for a whole county, because market shifts all over the place all the time. And so when we go in and analyze how we're going to sell a home, we understand the months of inventory, because then we can project, are we going to be in a seller's, a balanced, or a buyer's market? And if I'm in a seller's market, can I push the price higher? Absolutely, and you should. If we're in a balanced market, they're going to sell about where the market says. We got to sell them. And if we're in a buyer's market, we're going to have to sell it for probably a little bit less than what we think the market value is. Is this stuff helpful for you guys? Is it helpful? Okay, I don't want to be boring.
So it's like supply and demand.
I think we've had just about as many questions as you as we're going to. I'm not sure. The limit is normally 16, and I think he's at 18 or 20 so far today. Okay.
If vote the door and these folks continue to grow, they're going to skew these numbers up, but you're going to basically settle for one house in a short period.
So you're exactly right. It's going to, well, the first sale is not going to show up in the listing service, so it's not going to skew this data because I'm not pulling it. But you are going to have ultimately twice as many sales as you otherwise would. Seller to iBuyer. Well, it doesn't always be twice, but at least one more transaction. So seller to iBuyer, iBuyer to ultimate buyer. So it's going to increase the amount of transactions. The issue is that in the first place, and we'll talk a little bit more about iBuyers in a few minutes, and I'm sorry that we're kind of getting all over the place, but iBuyers, when they came in, they were paying prices that were not reasonable. They didn't make any sense. Zillow bought, I'm a big Zillow agent, broker, and Zillow bought one of my listings for at least $15,000 more than there was any possibility of me selling it for under any circumstances. And so my client said, what should I do? I said, you get that dang check and hit the road, sucker. I mean, get out of here. They still own that. Zillow still owns the house, still trying to sell it. And they had to pay me my commission. Because I already had it listed, so you can't do that. That's illegal in the state of Georgia. I explained it to them after they closed. We've got one of those love-hate relationships. You know, I sent them the bill ultimately. But they're starting to get their purchase prices a little bit more in line. which really makes all the difference in the world. So it's okay when your agents can bring more value, and then they step down to an iBuyer, and then they step down to selling to a true investor who might fix it up and flip it or something like that. Because you need to have those sort of three dynamics going on. And the reality is that the home buying and selling process was actually way more difficult than it should be over the years. Way more difficult than it should be. And an agent would go out and basically say, hey, what's your name, sir? The blue Adidas.
Presley.
Presley?
Yeah.
Presley. So they come out and say, hey, Presley, here's a list of things I want you to do, and they give you this whole list, and here's what you can do, and you get pretty money, and say, hey, do me a favor, give me a call when you're finished. And they show your wife that list at the same time, and she'll ride you like a horse for 3 or 4 months until you got all that work done. You'd be so stressed out, you have to feel like you have a stroke every day. And that was the way we did the home selling process, for the most part. That's a lot of friction, that's a lot of stress. And so what's going to happen is all these iBuyers coming into the market is going to force all of us, including you, to find ways to take the friction out of the process. And that's what you need to be thinking about. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Months of inventory. See, I showed the somewhere between 2 and 6 months worth of inventory right there. So that's the balanced market. You can see we've got 5.3 months and 5.4 months worth of our new construction products in Atlanta, and 2.5 months and 1.9 months worth of our resale stuff in Metro Atlanta. So much less inventory in the resales, more inventory in the new. In reality, everybody wants, the market is healthiest when it stays between those black lines. You can see our resale stuff is way lower, but it's much higher right now than it was last year. And what's going to happen is you're going to start to see that inventory pick up. And as it does, it gets a little bit more balanced, which makes it better for everybody. I think it does. This is our market efficiency ratio. I put these numbers together for you guys back in 2000. I think I started doing it in 2008. And that was back then, only 29% of the homes listed for the year actually sold. So the blue line is the number of homes listed for the year. The red is the number sold in that year. So you can see last year, 73% of the homes listed sold. So that 73% is the blended total of all those individual numbers I gave you a couple of charts back. Does that make sense to everybody? So 27% of the homes do not sell when they're listed in Metro Atlanta. Sales price to list price ratio. The top number is the final sales price, the final list price to sales price ratio. So if there have been price adjustments, then properties sell for 99% of that final list price. The blue line is the percentage that the final sales price is to the original list price. So in Atlanta, and you can see that there was a little more discounting going on. See right here? So you can see as inventory starts to grow, there's a little more discounting that goes on. And my guess is that you'll see these numbers more clearly as we look into 2019. And why is it important for somebody who's in the real estate industry, or maybe even somebody who just owns a home and wants to sell it, why is it important for them to know this kind of stuff? It helps them have the appropriate expectations as to what's going on. So if I told you more negotiating took place in the Atlanta market last year than the year before, that is factually accurate. You can see it. Now, it's just a little bit, but you can see the numbers going down. And by the way, 0.5% of the sales price of the average home in Metro Atlanta, that's a $1,500 difference. I mean, I know none of us would walk away from sale for $1,500, but $1,500 is $1,500, right? Maybe Charlie would.
Damn right.
600 or 800. Now, this is interesting, and these numbers are very hard to get, but I always like to understand the effect of pricing the home incorrectly in the first place. That's what this is designed to help us understand. And if you look at it, the left-hand bar represents the sales where there was no price change. The right-hand bar represents sales where there was a price change. And the no price change sales took place in 38.06 days, and they sold for 98.7% of their list price. The ones where you had a price change sold for 3 times, it took them 3 times as long to sell, and look at the discount. Sold for an extra almost 11% less. So if you price it wrong and you chase the price down, it can make a 10% difference in your sales price. Now, this is not like apples to apples, because sometimes these higher priced homes these ones where they price them too high tend to be higher priced homes in the first place. So when you make a 10% price reduction, even though it's 10%, it doesn't seem like the same as reducing a $250,000 house, 10%. But the reality is if you're going to be successful selling your home, you need to price it right in the first place, which means you need to understand average market pricing in the area, and then you need to understand market forces. Like, for example, the months of inventory. How long will it take us to sell this place based on what's happened in the past? Because then you can make the best decisions you possibly can. This is new construction versus resale, and we're really just trying to show the percentages of the new construction stuff down here at the bottom. And you can see that before we went into the recession, we were at 20%. New construction, we got as low as 7%, and we're back up to 14% of the market, but it's still a small percentage of the market. And builders are doing a very good job of not overbuilding. They're very sensitive to their inventory, and builders are trying to build a less expensive product in the last year. Have you noticed them moving toward making a more sort of market-based pricing? They're scared to death that they're going to have a bunch of $700,000 homes and get stuck the next time the market drops, and they're doing what they can to avoid it.
Well, isn't that like that neighborhood up on Apple, Alabama? The one that started out with $1 million plus, and now they're...
So you're talking about the one where Tyler Perry's house was. And so that is exactly what happened. So Lennar developed it. The gentleman who ran Lennar in the area at the time and I were fairly good friends. And Lennar corporate changed their strategy. And so here they were building 2,800 to 3,200 square foot homes on average that were probably going to be 900-ish instead of 1 million. They would have loved to have gotten 1 million. I don't think they could have. And then they just stopped. So they built 2 or 3 of them. They literally shut the thing down. They stopped it, gated it, moved somewhere else, and now they've sold it to Ashton Woods. It seems to me like Ashton Woods is trying to do the same thing. Once you get your zoning, in most counties, you're going to have to build what's approved to be built, right size, right finishes, things like that. So I'm not sure if that'll make it work. But Lennar decided they were not going to be in the high-end business. They were going to get in the average sales price business so they could get in, sell a bunch of them, and get out over time. Exactly it. So this just shows you the percentage of the sales price of a resale versus a new home. Economists say when there's about a 20% difference in the sales price of a new home versus a resale, that a market is considered to be in balance. So if you, and I will tell you this from a practical standpoint, if you want to buy a new home, please don't buy the first 4 or 5 homes in a neighborhood where it's going to take them 7 or 8 years to build out. Because you will be fighting against your brand new home competition the entire time you're there, and I'm telling you, you will not be able to sell your home unless you're willing to sell it for 20% less than the same exact new home cost. And it'll drive you crazy. And maybe I'm off, maybe the number's 12, or maybe it's 15%, but it's going to be way more than you're going to want to stomach. So tell all your family, tell all your friends. But notice what's happening. That market is getting here. Look here. It's getting almost back to 20% right here. See, 78.6%. This is not apples to apples, because the average resale is smaller, older. I guess you already figured out the resale was older than the average new home. You're sharp, right? You got that part, right? And then the new homes are pretty much bigger. But the reality is they're starting to get where they make a little bit more sense. Average resale, $290,000. Average new home, $370,000. This to me was one of the most interesting charts that we used to look at during the downturn. And should I just let you guys figure out what it is, or you want me to tell you? You better remind you again. So what's interesting is each one of these different colors in these charts represents a different price band. So this red down here, these are units that were under 100,000. So take a look here. In 2007, units under 100,000 were 7% of the market. Last year, they were, let's just call it 4% of the market, 3.5%. Look, in the worst of the market, they were 41%. Is that amazing? So all of these, the green is the 100 to 250, and you can see what much larger percentage. Look, the purple, 250 to 500, then 500 to 750. There was almost 6,000 of those. Look here, the 750s to $1 million, it was 1,500. That got as low as 540. And then look, the homes over $1 million dropped to 450 a year, almost right out of the gate during the recession, and there was 1,230 of those sold last year. So this high end of the Atlanta market is still very healthy, although we have a very small high-end market compared to most major metro areas. You know, when you think there's only 1,250 or 30 sales over $1 million in a city with a population of 6 million, it really seems like a very small number. Which, by the way, that number makes sense to me because even if I had all the money in the world, I would be careful buying $1.5 million or $1.8 million or $2 million house. I did in 2007. I had purchased the largest RE/MAX brokerage in the state of Georgia. I was rich. Now, by 2009, I was broke. Like flat out broke. Like I couldn't even pay attention. I was so broke. But I told my wife, I said, hey, now that we're making all this big money, I'm gonna move, get me a big house, move over to St. Ives. And she looked me right in the face and she said, well, you make sure you give me your address so I can bring the kids by to see you. I said, what? She said, I'm not moving. I like this place. I don't want to be in a big pretentious place. And I don't have anything against country club communities, nothing in the world. But I say a prayer all the time. I'm like, honey, thank God you did not let me move over to a, can you imagine losing a business that you bought and a $1.7 million, I got all this money house? I didn't have a golf cart. I had my golf cart ready. I was ready to go. You need a golf cart, right? If you're going to live in St. Ives? That's what I need. So anyway, very interesting information there. This is the percentage of cash purchases on homes that are listed 200,000 and under. We used to look at this so we were seeing all the institutional investor money flowing into Atlanta. So at one point in time in 2012, when the institutional investors were big, they bought 45% of the houses under 200,000 were bought for all cash. It's returning more to a market normal, which is really in the 20 to 25% of the market normal. It was 22.64% last year. I just keep leaving that in there because I think it's interesting. S&P 500, we look at this every year. Each one of those lines represents a different metropolitan statistical area throughout the country. DC, Miami, Atlanta is the blue right here on the bottom. Atlanta is the only one that I have actually assigned numbers to. This says that the value of all homes in the United States, January the 1st of 2000, was set at 100. And so it tracks all markets together so you can see what happened since the beginning of 2000. And you can see these huge run-ups in Miami and New York, all the different places. The market just ran up incredibly. But you can see Atlanta only went up 36% over January of 2000. And we dropped down to where we were about 12% below where we were January of 2000. And now we're 47, almost 50% higher. So Atlanta's a very balanced market compared to most major metro areas because you don't get these huge price swings over time. And you can see everything is a little bit more moderated. I just always like to include that in there. So let's just take a look at some of the counties. I'm going to go through these kind of quickly. Will all of you have access to be able to download the presentation if you want it? Okay, good. So I'll just give some of the bigger counties so you can take a look at it. Let me tell you what the numbers are. I love to continue to include these because you can't find this information anywhere else. And in most cases, you can't find any information that I'm giving you that's back past like 2008, you can't find it anywhere because the listing service has changed and I happen to save the data from before, so it's kind of neat to go back and take a look at it. But this shows you the total sales, so notice in Gwinnett County, they dropped last year, and that shows you the total distressed sales down here at the bottom. So there was a whopping total of 145 short sales, foreclosures, REO properties sold in the whole county for the year. The whole county. This shows you the average sales price of a regular property, and I'm sorry that's so hard to read, but it's $258,000, I believe. And this shows you the average sales price of a distressed property. So you got North Fulton County right here. Unit sales have been dropping in North Fulton County for the last 3 years, which is interesting. If you wanted to buy a foreclosure in North Fulton, you had 17 choices in all of 2018. Average sales price of a new home and a resale look, only $10,000 difference. And in this particular case, the average sales price of the distressed property was $518, new home $528. South Fulton County, units continue to grow. The percentage of distressed property is much smaller. Sale prices in total, non-distressed and distressed properties up in both cases. I'm sorry this is so hard to read on the screen. City of Atlanta, you can see what's happening there. Cobb County, DeKalb County, Forsyth County dropped 2 years in a row, total sales, which I think is interesting. Average sales price continues to climb. Cherokee County, sales flattening out in some of the bigger counties, sales prices on both the average total sales price and the distress. All county units moving in the right direction. Foreclosures almost gone, sales prices going up in both cases. Clayton County, units starting to flatten out, number of distressed properties way down there, and notice the average sales price is clicking up nicely. The sales price of the distressed property went down. Fayette County, very small market, but just for you people who might be interested in Fayette County, Henry County, it went from having a low of 496 closings in 2013 to 1506. What a difference there. Average sales price $230,000. Rockdale County. Started in 2012, giving you sort of the net effect of distressed properties, REOs, short sales, bankruptcies, anything where the seller is in some level of distress. And the average net effect was basically a 16% decrease. So yeah, the fact that we had so many distressed properties, it brought the value of all properties down on average 16%. In 2018, now this number is not 6.25, it is 0.625%. So there's really almost no effect because the REOs, the short sales, foreclosures, all those, they're such a small percentage. Condos and townhomes, 0.251, so a quarter of 1%. So almost no net effect at all. Serious delinquencies in the single-family detached market, you can see they're both coming down. This is blue is Freddie Mac, red is Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae is much larger, but you can see their numbers kind of follow right along. You know, historically, I would say a mortgage company would probably consider their portfolio to be in fairly good balance. Was it something I said? He didn't know I was talking to him. So they would consider their market to be reasonably in balance if they weren't dealing with more than about 1% of their inventory on an annual basis. You can see that they're both dealing probably with about 0.75 to 0.8% of their inventory, which means they're making money. They price in most of the time about a 1% delinquency, foreclosure, take action rate. They build that into the cost of making the mortgage market work, if that makes sense. So remember we talked about the Johnsons before, and in general, most people, how many of you feel like you were really, really, really well educated when you made your last real estate purchase or your first real estate purchase? Or how many of you figure just sort of blind luck, it worked out okay and you didn't lose a whole lot of money, you got to enjoy your house? I mean, isn't that really kind of the way it works? Just kind of, I mean, I like it, you know, the driveway's nice and got that swing set in the backyard, and my wife cried when she was standing over the sink in the kitchen, so I might as well go ahead and buy it. Well, what's happening is people are starting to make a little less emotional decisions about a house and a little more logical decisions about a house. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because the reality is that when I first saw the house that I live in today, I did not like it. It was ugly. But it wasn't just ugly on the inside, it was ugly on the outside too. So it was worked out great that way, very consistent from an ugliness factor. But my wife liked it. She loved it. And so, because it was very important to me to, number one, have my wife stay my wife, and number two, be able to live in the same house with her, I decided that would be the perfect house for me to buy.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And the reality is that I still don't love the house today as much as she loves the house, but it really doesn't matter because it's where we had our last two kids. It's where all four of our daughters have grown up since they were, my oldest was 2 when we bought the house. And so it is like the most significant location on earth for me, is the place that I didn't absolutely love the day we bought it. But I really can't imagine living anywhere else. So I think that there probably should be a little more emotion in the home buying process. But what's happening is people like the Johnsons and other families out there, they want as much information as they can so that they can make decisions. Because the reality is that most people are smart enough to make wise decisions if they're presented with the right amount of information. And so as we talked about, Ms. Johnson wants to be able to turn on the faucet in the kitchen. She wants the faucet to work. And when it has a faucet in the kitchen that is known for, so we have a a pot filler. And my pot filler is my favorite faucet in the whole house. But there's something defective in the pot filler, and the tiles on the walls behind the countertops are generally supposed to be horizontal, the lines. Right? Like always. Now, you can't have a tile with that horizontal lines. Come on, you guys are really tired today. You are way too slow now. So the problem is that the pot filler faucet, because of the type of faucet it is, it doesn't stay exactly parallel with the lines in the tile. And I wish somebody had told me that before I put that down. I wish they'd told me that before I put it on top of glass tile, which is the reason you can't tighten down enough to make it stay in the same place. So I just wish somebody had told me, and I could have made a decision. But see, I didn't get the right to make that decision. So every time I see it, I walk out now. Straighten it back up. My wife says, you're going to break that someday. So, all right, it's my damn pot filler. I'll break it if I want to. Someday I'm going to break it. Water's going to shoot out of the wall. And I just wish somebody told me in the first place so I could have put a different pot filler, or I could have done something different. And we just want to be educated. We just want to know. So I think the market is changing, and we're going to educate people more as we move forward. So let's talk about what I think is happening in the future. Number one, it's still more affordable on average in Georgia to buy a home than it is to rent a home. Especially if you're under $450,000. Just about across the board, you can buy a property in Atlanta, and your total expenses to own it will be 80% if you're buying it compared to if you're renting it. And that is very favorable for the Atlanta, Georgia market. All the states that are in red match that criteria. I think home prices are going to appreciate more slowly. You see my snail up there? I think they're going to go more slowly. In some cases, they might not appreciate it all for just a little while. And I don't think that's too bad. I don't think that's a horrible thing to not have your average $550,000 or $600,000 house be worth $650,000 and then $750,000. I think you need to have some balance in the market, and I think that stability gives me and you stability long-term in the equity we have in a home. I don't care what anybody tells you about mortgage rates. The only people who predict what's going to happen with mortgage rates every year are Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the National Association of Realtors, and the Mortgage Bankers Association. Those are four people I do not care what they think about what's going to happen with mortgages, because they just want to sell more mortgages and more houses, right? So every year they say the same thing. We expect mortgage rates to go up 1% the next year, right? And how often do they go up 1% in the next year? They said this year it's going to happen for real. And then you had the biggest 2-week drop in mortgage rates that you've had in the last 7 years. I'm going to show you a chart in just a minute, and I'm going to make sure to remind you guys of what really sets mortgage rates. It's the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond, period. And so if you want to be an expert in what's happening, and somebody says, I want to know if mortgage rates are going to go up or going to go down, go in and look at the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond yesterday, look at the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond today, and mortgage rates will follow that yield difference. When the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond goes up, mortgage rates will go up. When the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond goes down, mortgage rates will go down. And I'll show you a chart that charts that out for the last number of years. This is what's happened for the last month or two. This is the 5/1 ARM there in the rust color, the 15-year ARM in the green, and then the 15-year fix in the green, and the 30-year fix in the blue. And you can see as of, I think this is the 28th of March, 4.06% 30-year fixed on average, 3.57 15-year fixed. That's cheap. A couple weeks ago that was 4, and that was almost 5. Well, a couple months ago. But I can show you charts from everybody that says the interest rates are going to definitely go up. The reality is they don't know. You still got a lot of boomerang buyers entering the market, people that got pushed out of the market, foreclosure, bankruptcy, short sale, something like that during the downturn. Most of the time you only have to wait 2 years. In some cases you have to wait 4 after those significant events. So a lot of people are able to get back into the market much, much faster than they thought they would be able to get into the market. And they think that that's going to represent 300,000 buyers in the United States of America this year. Now, in a 5.5 million market, 300,000 is not a huge difference, but it certainly continues to push demand. It talked about tax reform, tax changes. We'll have to kind of wait and see, just to kind of give you a reminder of the things that did change. Number one, you have the cap on mortgage interest deduction, $750,000 mortgage. The state and local income tax cap, so you can only deduct them up to a certain point. They did preserve the exclusion of capital gains, so if you live in your home for 2 of the last 5 years, you are entitled up to $250,000 in gains tax-free, and so is your spouse, if you're both on the title together. And that's a great, one of the few ways you can earn money tax-free and not just defer taxes in the United States. I think it's a 912 or a 921 exclusion. I don't remember what it is exactly. Deductibility of home equity loans changed. So this year, you take out a home equity loan. If you take out a home equity loan to pay for your kids to go to college, it's not deductible anymore. If you take out a home equity loan, number one, it has to be $100,000, and number two, you have to prove that you used it to improve your home. Then you can deduct the interest up to the limits. Okay. Deductibility of moving expenses starting in 2019. Starting in 2018, moving expenses are not deductible anymore for an employee. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see how doubling the standard deduction plays out. I mean, we went from $12,000 to $24,000 for a married couple, half that for a single person. And then one of the things that I think is going to be very significant, how many of you in here have your own LLC or S Corp or whatever? So how many of you have seen the result of the pass-through tax deduction on your tax return? Big difference? I mean, really? So does anybody know how that works? 20% right off the top. So if you had $200,000 in S Corp income, it is a 20% deduction right off the top. It's $40,000 right off the top that you get to deduct. It should make a difference. So I have not seen my tax returns this year, so I don't know if it's going to make a big difference or not. But I hope it will. I hope and pray it will. Don't forget, there's a big push out there to change the way mortgages are originated and serviced. They're looking to standardize things, so they're looking to really push the cost of originating a mortgage. I think the cost of originating a mortgage is up around $8,000 today, and that's very high. And they're trying to standardize things, the way they pull tax returns, things like that, to make it a lot cheaper. And they're also starting to standardize the servicing rules for anybody who services for Fannie and Freddie and FHA and VA. So they're going to continue to be a push. We talked earlier that we all need to be looking for ways to simplify things. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that we do at Gaddis Partners Remax Center is we offer what's called a rehab and a refresh program. So if we come to your home and you want to get as much money as you can for your home, but you don't have the money to invest in the home, or do you have the skills to get it fixed up, we will actually specify all of the repairs that need to be made. We'll give you the estimate, and then we'll actually loan you the money to do the repairs. So that when you sell the property at closing, you pay us back for the money we loaned you. You actually pay a small premium for the risk that we took after we loaned you the money. But in most cases, you probably make an extra, you borrow $15,000 from us, your sales price goes up to $20,000. So the reality is, if it costs you an extra $2,000 or $3,000 to do that, it's perfectly reasonable. So we're trying to do a lot of things to decrease friction. So in most cases, when somebody is going through the sales process and they have inspection repairs, the seller just agrees on what needs to be done, and we just get somebody to handle it. Within a few days, it's all done. We fund it, we get the money back in closing. So we're trying to figure out ways to decrease friction. What's interesting, and we're not doing it because we want to make more money. We're doing it because we want to add value. We're doing it because we want to decrease friction. We want to simplify things for people. But the end result is ultimately our income on per transaction level is going up instead of down. Yes, sir?
Now, which kind of loan would that be? Would that be a 203K or a regular FHA?
It'd be a CMG loan.
Cleve
Cleve Gaddis. That wouldn't be any kind of loan. So this is the person already owns the home. And so, I'm sorry, I shouldn't joke with you because I know that was a legit question. So this wasn't really part of a mortgage. So this is our business making what is a secured loan, because it is a loan against the property, that is an interest-free loan for 6 months, and then it has interest. So it'd be like a second mortgage on your home, not fitting into the permanent financing. What was your name, sir?
John,
So John was asking about the improvement loans that would be part of an FHA loan. I guess I didn't hear the second one you said, maybe the VA loan?
203 rehab, 203K rehab.
So those are, that's an FHA loan, that's a type of an FHA loan. Yes.
In regards to this type of thing, a couple questions. Who is providing information to you so far as the type of repairs? Is that being done by a home inspector, this guy over here possibly? And the other question has to do with coming back to the process of these knock and OfferPad and Zillow and all this type of thing. Some of the information that we're kind of being filtered down to us to some degree is that on their properties, obviously when they list the properties, it's a vacant property because at that point they then moved out to whoever they bought the property from. And they then have had, to some element, an inspection done. And then does this sound like something that you're familiar with? That
Yes.
This is the process?
So in our process, it would be unusual for us to do a full home inspection on the property, because what we're talking about is making cosmetic updates. And sometimes they'll still find some issues when they go through the sales process, and the seller will take care of those separately. OfferPad and Open Door do their inspections after they enter into a purchase agreement with the home seller. Zillow does theirs before. So you'll find Zillow doing thousands of inspections of premature inspections. I don't know any other way to say it, because that's who's going out and giving them everything they need to do on the condition of the property. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then that kind of leads to the other point is the promotion of that sale of the property being focused on the fact that the property has been inspected and kind of giving an influence to the possible buyer. And I know that their agent certainly has a significant influence as to the property having already been inspected, that maybe they want to save the X amount of dollars and go with that.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody out there is saying, hey, because it's owned by Open Door or OfferPad or Zillow, you don't need to inspect it. I think the attitude in the real estate community is that you probably need to inspect those twice.
Right, we don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, so they're just because they think they know how to do it and get the repairs done does not mean they're following the rules. And so I have not seen a trend of people say, hey, oh, well, never mind, I don't need to inspect it. So anything you can do to simplify the market, remember, this is the big picture, sandpaper. And so everything people do from a real estate transaction standpoint, a lot of friction, is very difficult. They don't know what to do, and it literally feels like somebody's rubbing sandpaper on them all the time. So anything you can do to simplify the home inspection process, let them schedule through an app. You know, figure out easier ways to give them the inspection report. Figure out easier ways to help them understand really what you're saying. I mean, some of you guys, I only see inspection reports myself for the most part on behalf of the seller. So I very rarely look at them on behalf of the buyer, even though my agents do. I'm just not normally involved in that. And I will tell you, sometimes it is really, really, really difficult to figure out what somebody is saying specifically. And, you know, the more pictures, more explanations and arrows, just anything you can do to relieve friction from the marketing, the more educational material you can give them, I think the better you will be. The reason real estate is so interesting to other people is they say that real estate commissions in the United States last year were somewhere between 78 and 86 billion. I don't know which one is right. Those are both big numbers. And the real estate industry, on the agent level, the margins are huge. And I'm not saying your average agent makes a lot of money, because your average agent only sells 7 or 8 houses a year, so they don't really make a lot of money, but they don't have a lot of expense to generate it. And so what happens is all of those companies, the Zillow, the whatever, they're really trying to get the margin that goes to the real estate agents today. So they're really just trying to get in and get part of the 78, 82 billion, whatever the number is, they're trying to get a portion of it. And the reality is that your average real estate agent out there are some really, really good ones, but your average real estate agent out there makes way more money than they should based on the value they give to the transaction. And I'm going to a Northeast Atlanta Association of Realtors banquet after this, and I would say the same thing to them. They would probably spit on me, but it's true. They don't do a whole lot, and in some cases, they don't really know much to do. My office always complained, that agent's so lazy, they won't do anything. I said, how freaking will you? Just get between them and help their client yourself, and we'll have a heyday here. We'll take care of our clients, because if they're not capable of representing theirs, then we can do a better job of representing ours. So the capital is trying to get in there and find those dollars. In Atlanta, you have OfferPad, a smaller, more independent company. You have Zillow, which you all heard of. Zillow figures they've got to get into the iBuyer program in order to save their model. They're having some profitability problems, and the reality is that Zillow and Realtor.com are going to try to get specifically between the consumer and the agent, and they're doing a fairly good job of it right now. So eventually, they're going to take all the leads, they're going to refer them directly to an agent, they're going to get a 25%, 30, 35% referral fee, and most agents out there are totally asleep as it happens and not changing their business model. And so we have, in our business, have doubled and tripled down on how we work with our existing referrals and Sphere and all the radio show and stuff we do. So all of these models exist because there's too much friction in the industry. Every one of them is trying to make about $10,000 a transaction. That includes title, mortgage, and so you do with Open Door. Open Door sells you the title insurance, you don't even know it. Open Door is doing your mortgage, and you don't even know it. I mean, they're just trying to get their hand in everywhere, so they just need to make a few $1,000 on the actual transaction itself. So they can pay a price that's probably way higher than it should be based on the market. Everybody talks about millennials not buying houses. Millennials are the largest purchasing group in the country today. This one, I looked at that, I thought that looked like from Friends, like the TV show Friends. But they are the largest purchasing group of houses in the United States today, because the reality is that as they age, and they're doing everything a little later than most earlier generations, they're getting married later, having kids later, but as they start doing things that prior generations did, they start wanting the things that prior generations wanted, and they move out to the suburbs, and they buy a house in a safe area where their kids can be comfortable going to school. This is household formation. Notice, this is household formation. This is $500,000 a year. This is $1 million a year. You need to be at $1 million a year in order for the country to have the kind of growth it's looking for. And notice, you were below the $1 million per year. And now, fairly consistently above the $1 million per year. These are new household formations. These are homeowners, and these are renters. You have negative household formation in 2018 for renters, and positive household formation continuing to grow for homeowners. That is very, very, very exciting for you and for the real estate industry. Percentage of home ownership, this is just the percentage of home ownership. It got all the way up to about 69%, got down to about 63%. It's just under 65%. So the percentage of Americans who own a home is continuing to rise, and I think that is a big, big, big deal. We want that to continue to rise. Do we want it to be 70? I don't think it's meant to be 70, but it probably needs to be 65 or 66%. I mean, there's a certain number of people out there that should rent because they're not going to be here long term, or because they work at Waffle House and they make $30,000 a year and they shouldn't live in a $600,000 house, which is what was happening right before the recession, because they got a stated income, stated asset, or liar's loan and just put down that maybe $200,000 a year. Home price appreciation got as high in 2013 as 11.6%. We're projecting in 2019, that is me, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, and Zillow, all three of us, are projecting it'll be around 3% this year. Remember me telling you that mortgage rates follow the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond? See this gray line right here? That's the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond. So see what happened here? They went up, and look what happened. They went down, and look what happened. Both of them went right down behind them. So, and this is the federal funds rate. So when you see the Federal Reserve just raise the target interest rate to, this is a chart that shows the yellow shows the target Fed funds rate. And notice that this increase in mortgage rates followed this, but now see this is starting to flatten out. But look, they had no effect here whatsoever. So just because the government raises interest rates does not mean that mortgage rates will follow. Very valuable information right here for anybody who's trying to time the market. This takes the average sales price in the U.S. of a new single-family home. And it charts it all the way back to 1971. And the blue line is the actual price. Now these are higher than what you hear in the news because these are all new homes. So it shows average sales price now of about $336,000, I think. Well, what happens is then we take this number and I adjust it by the fact that incomes rise and mortgage rates are lower than they were in 1971. So it gives you the effective price 1971 to today, instead of a house costing $336,000, it technically cost about $197,000 if you look at kind of an apples to apples comparison. So just trying to help you understand that as interest rates are below normal, it's easier for people to purchase homes. It's much more affordable for them to do that. We switched radio stations earlier this year. Now you can listen to us on SportsX. That's Atlanta's ESPN station. So every Saturday at 11 o'clock you can listen to my show. I actually listened to my show myself today, which I don't normally do. And I got tongue-tied in the third segment of the show. It was absolutely hilarious. I could not say any of my words correctly. And I used 3 or 4 words that, like, they weren't even words. Like, literally, it was close, but it wasn't exactly right. I'm listening going, what in the hell did you just say? Lord, you can't even speak. What? No, it is like me, actually. Especially if you talk so fast. And the problem is Alfie, my co-host, if you ever hear me call Alfie, if you listen to the show, you hear me say, hey, Alfie, it's because the little son of a gun's going to sleep. And I don't want him going to sleep. I need somebody to listen to the damn show. And right now, it's got to be just Alfie. So I'll wake him up. You can get if you're interested, you can actually subscribe and get podcasts for those. Remember, we talked today, it's all about Johnson's. Everything you're doing is designed to benefit somebody who's going to live in that home, somebody who needs to know something. I need to remember that. You need to remember that. Everybody who supports real estate needs to remember. It's not about us impressing them with what we know. It's not about us trying to justify the fee. It's about her making Ms. Johnson understand that the faucet she has a tendency not to work, and here's why, and here's what we think you need to do to fix it. So that she is not inconvenienced when her 2 kids need to go do something with the fact that her kitchen faucet is leaking. A couple of things I'd like to suggest for you. If you're interested, I'd love to connect with more of you. A lot of you I've connected with, so we talk quite often on social media, and you comment on my stuff, and I comment on your stuff. But you can connect with me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn, and this is how you would look for me on those. You can listen to me. You can subscribe to the podcast, so you'll have the Atlanta Real Estate Game Show podcast, which is commercial free, so it lasts 54 minutes instead of 60 minutes because there's no commercials in it. And you can sign up on Apple Podcast, and every week it'll tell you, hey, there's another show, and you can listen to it at your convenience. If you have a non-Apple phone, you can actually get it on Stitcher. And then some of you guys refer clients to us every year. I always appreciate it. I'm still very involved in our business, even though I travel a lot and I do a lot of speaking and things. I'm very involved. So if you send somebody our way, we will fall all over ourselves taking care of that person. And the reality is, if they came to me from one of you guys, if I had to help them for free in order to make them happy, that is exactly what I would do. So we will always make sure that we make people happy. And if you ever have any opportunities for us to go speak to an HOA or a trade group or anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about real estate, make sure you send them our way. And there's my contact information. And I would say I just about nailed it.